Okay, third type of knowledge. What were the first two?
I don't know.
Well, I know you don't know because you weren't here.
Acquaintance.
Knowledge by acquaintance and knowledge and skill knowledge.
Skill knowledge.
Okay, does that sound familiar?
So the
These
second
are 3 by 5 cards.
one.
Okay, this is the third type, and this is the type that epistemology is concerned with. Okay, when we're talking about what is knowledge, we're not talking about what is skill knowledge, and we're not talking about what is knowledge by acquaintance. Yes. Okay, so when we're talking, trying to define what is knowledge or what does it mean to know something, this is the kind of knowledge we're talking about. Okay, so we give you the other two just so that you could contrast it and so that you can know what the kinds of knowledge are. But we're giving you those two so you can contrast and know that this is what we're talking about. Okay, this is called propositional knowledge. Now we know what a proposition is, hopefully. It's not like anything weird or kinky, okay? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about proposition as in putting something out there as like, here's a statement, right? We talked about the relationship between a proposition and reality, okay? And if they match, there's truth happening there, okay? This is what we're talking about, propositional knowledge, knowing that. Yeah. So we've got knowing of, knowing how, and knowing that. This basically just means knowing stuff, okay? Knowing information, knowing things, knowing facts. Here's some examples. Knowing that a regulation basketball goal is 10 feet high, okay? Knowing that there's 4 cups in a court. Knowing algebraic functions, okay? How things work, like the rules for it and stuff like that, okay? This is, like I said, this is the primary topic of philosophical discourse on knowledge. So when philosophy is talking about knowledge, when it's talking about what is knowledge, what does it mean to know things, this is the kind of knowledge it's talking about. Okay? Propositional knowledge. Okay? Here's some examples. Okay. So when we talk, so we're going to go with this type of knowledge, and we're going to dig further into what it is, okay? Then after we define what it is, we're going to look at 2 different theories, okay? Just like we did for theories of truth, right? We're going to look at 2 different theories for knowledge. So propositional knowledge, other than defining it just as knowing that or knowing stuff, okay? We're going to define knowledge. This is the classical definition of knowledge. Knowledge equals justified, true belief. Okay, so at the top there where it says K equals JTB, this is a classical definition of what knowledge is. Knowledge is a justified, true belief about something. Okay, let that soak in for a second. A justified, true belief about something. If you have a justified belief, true belief, about something, that means that you know that thing. Okay? This is the classical definition of knowledge. And mostly there's one little caveat in there that some philosophers add, but we'll talk about it later. Okay, so here we go back to our necessary and sufficient. Remember these? By the way, almost done, finished grading your exams. They should be finished today, hopefully. I don't have your grades on Blackboard, but almost everybody did really well in the necessary and sufficient stuff. So good job with that. So necessary and sufficient. Knowledge equals justified true belief. Okay, justified true belief is necessary. In other words, you have to have justified true belief in order to have knowledge, but it might not be sufficient. You might have to have more than that. Okay, to have propositional knowledge, knowing that. Okay, to have propositional knowledge, you must meet all 3 criteria, but it might be possible to have a justified true belief and still not have knowledge. It's possible. It is, like I said, the classical understanding or the standard definition, also known as, please note, the tripartite analysis. If I ask you what the tripartite analysis is of knowledge, you'll say knowledge equals justified true belief. Okay, tripartite, right? It's got three parts, justified, true, and belief. Okay, tripartite analysis. Okay, so we'll talk about what might be needed to add to justified true belief in order to equal knowledge. If we definitely have to have those three, though. So those three, justified and true and belief, we're going to talk about those. So let's talk about the true part first, because we talked about truth not too long ago. That is probably on our minds a little bit. But look, a proposition, I don't know if you ever considered this, but in order to know something, that proposition has to be true. Did you know that? Did you know that? In order to know something, your proposition has to be true. Have you ever said this to yourself where you're like, oh, I thought I knew that, but it turns out I didn't? Why do you say that? Usually you say it when you find out that what you thought you knew was false, right? So you can't know something. Now think about it. You can't know something that's false. You think you know something that's false, but you don't really know it. Okay? Freaky. Because most people are like, oh yeah, well my uncle knows a lot of things that are, ape shit crazy. Well, he doesn't know them, he thinks he knows them. Okay? Okay. It's possible to know something that's false. Here's an example. Does it make sense to say that somebody knows the capital of Montana is Billings? What's the capital of Montana? No. That's right. So can somebody know? Listen, I know that the capital of Montana is Billings. Are you sure? Yep, I know it. Do they know it? Do they know it? No, they don't know that. They think they know that, but they don't know it because it's not true. Okay? They have a really strong belief that they know it, but it's not true. So look, they may have the belief part, right? They may even have the justified part by saying, well, my teacher, who's a crackhead said that, right? They may even have justification, but if they don't have justified true belief, they're not going to have real knowledge, okay? Or can I know that 2 + 2 = 6? Well, possibly if I'm a relativist, I could, right? But 2 + 2 doesn't equal 6, and I can't know that it does because it's false. Okay, truth is necessary to have knowledge, but it's not sufficient. In other words, something has to be true, but we have to have more things to know something. In other words, we don't know, there are a lot of true things that we don't know, right? We have to have more than just truth. There has to be more things involved. So it's necessary, truth is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Remember what truth is? Just remind you, okay, truth is a relational property between two things. Truth is a relational property between a statement and reality. And if the statement matches reality, then there's truth. Okay, that's what truth is. That's what the correspondence theory says, which is the going theory for what truth is. Okay, let's talk for a second about certainty. We talked about that a little bit last time, about certainty, but let's talk about certainty. Certainty means that we can't possibly, hang on. We're not going to talk about certainty yet. We're going to talk about belief and then circle back. Because certainty has to do with belief. I thought that slide was out of order. Okay. So, justified true belief. So, let's talk about the belief part. Before a person can claim to know something, they must believe it themselves. I mean, again, just think about it for a second. You can't know something that you don't believe. That's just kind of silly, okay? It wouldn't make sense for a person to say that they knew that the world was round, but I don't believe that the world is round. Well, I know it's round, I just don't believe it. That's silly, right? Nobody says that. That's really stupid. Okay? People believe and think they know false things, but they don't know one thing but not believe it. Okay? Belief and knowledge go together. Okay? But belief is necessary for knowledge, but it's not sufficient. Right? We have to have belief, we see, but we have to have more than just belief. Because look, people believe, if your knowledge is just based on what you believe, you know a lot of really crazy things. Right? Because you believe a lot of really crazy things. And your beliefs change. So does that mean your knowledge changes? Knowledge and belief aren't exactly the same thing, but belief is a part of it. Okay? Your belief also has to be true in order for you to know it. Okay? So, justified true and belief. Okay, a bit more on belief. So let's talk about, let me look at the certainty for a second. Okay, we'll talk about this one. Okay. So let's talk about certainty. Certainty, when you talk about beliefs, usually when we say that you believe something, we kind of have this weird thing in our mind that like we're like 110% committed to it. Otherwise, we wouldn't say we believe it. We'd say, no, I don't know, maybe I think so. Okay. But when we say believe, like that's like, I believe, right? That's like, well, I'm all in. Okay. But certainty is not a requirement for belief or for knowledge. Okay. Basically, you just have to be greater than 50% in order to say that you believe it. You can still be a little bit uncertain. You just have to be mostly certain. More than half. Okay? So for you to say that you believe something and for you to say that you're certain about it, yeah, I'm sure. You don't have to be 100% sure. You just have to be over 50%. Okay? So for example, if your belief that human life begins at conception is greater than 50%, then you believe that human life begins at conception. That doesn't mean that you have zero doubts. It just means that's the one you're going with. You're pretty sure about that one. Okay? If you're pretty sure about it, like more than 50%, then you can say that you believe that. Okay? Here's another really interesting thing about beliefs. Beliefs, do you realize you can't choose your beliefs? Ever thought about that before? Now, when I say choose your beliefs, I don't mean choose a religion, because belief and religion are usually used in conjunction with each other. You can choose a religion, but you can't choose what you believe. Did you know that? You can't just sit and grit your teeth and go, okay, I'm going to believe it, and yeah, got it. Have you ever noticed that about yourself? What happens more often, well, all the time, is that you find yourself believing something. Okay? Now, maybe you decide to act on a belief, but you don't decide to start believing something. You decide to start shaping your life around a certain belief, okay? But you don't decide to start believing something. Here's an example. I will give you, what does it say, $10,000 to believe that a pink elephant is flying around the room right now.
I got one in my backpack. I believe it.
No, you don't.
I feel it. I sense it.
No, you don't. You just really want $10,000. Okay? I mean, really, if you're being honest with yourself, I mean, all of us would say, yeah, I believe it, right, in order to try to get the $10,000. But what I'm saying is, if you really believe it, I will give you $10,000. We can't just choose to believe that, right?
I can make him laugh.
Wow, that's weird. He really did have it in his backpack. That is the first time that's ever happened in my class.
Throw it up in the air.
That's like upsetting to me. And then like internal, as my friend says, like a visceral level.
You don't like my party? Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my
Why
gosh.
do you have that?
I got it from Belgium when I was over there. I went to Delirium.
Of all the things you could get in Belgium, that's what you got?
I got a book too. What would you get in Belgium?
You got a book?
And I got arrested.
Something like ethnic and handmade. Okay. Moving on. Holy cow. Moving on. Okay, we're learning way too much about all sorts of things. Okay, the point is that you can't really just choose to believe something like that. Because invisible flying pink elephants don't exist. And you know that, right? So you can't just decide, even with $10,000 on the line, you can't just go and like force yourself, right, gut it out and force yourself to believe it. Because beliefs don't work that way. What we would do is find ourselves believing that invisible pink elephants do exist. Justice may have given us the first step by revealing a pink elephant hat from his backpack, right? And being like, well, maybe it's a possibility, right? The door's now open, okay. But we're not there yet. We'd have to have more evidence, right? And then once you amass evidence, okay, once you say, well, a friend of mine said this, or, here's like, it's kind of like Bigfoot, right? Where we've got like all this evidence amassed, and to some people, they find themselves believing in Bigfoot. It's not like they just decide to believe in Bigfoot. They've got all this evidence, and they look at the evidence, and then they say, that means Bigfoot exists. I believe that Bigfoot exists, right? But you don't just decide to do that. You find yourself believing in something because of the evidence that you've amassed. Now, sometimes your evidence is good. Sometimes your evidence is crappy. Okay? But the point is that you can't force yourself to believe something. You find yourself believing something based on you taking steps toward that, right? By amassing evidence and so on. Does that make sense to you? So because you can't force yourself to believe something, you're not in direct control of your beliefs. You realize that. You're not in direct control. You can't choose to not believe something and choose to believe something just out of your will. What you can do if you want to change your beliefs, what you can do is go and look at evidence and amass evidence for one side or the other and then decide, right, based on the evidence, what you believe. That's how you change your beliefs. You don't do it just by deciding. You can't. It's not possible. They're not those kinds of things. Interesting, isn't it? So you are in indirect control of your beliefs, but not in direct control. So this should, like, for those of you that are thinking about the world outside this classroom, which I hope you are, this should lead you to be maybe more careful or vigilant about what you place yourself in the presence of, because that's impacting the conclusions that you make about the world, right? That's shaping your beliefs about the world, okay? So if your beliefs about the world are terrible or depressing or are, not working for you, then maybe you've put yourself in the presence of evidence that's leading you towards that belief. In order to change that, you need to put yourself in the presence of different evidence. Okay? Same thing with God or religious things. You can't just decide that God is, no matter how loudly the preacher yells and beats you over the head, right? You can't, hopefully they didn't really do that, but I mean with this works. You can't just believe, right? Just believe, just let go and believe. You can't do that. You can't do that. It's not that type of thing. You've got to find yourself there based on evidence that you know. Okay, let's go back to this certainty thing. Remember that certainty means, when I say certainty, it means we can't possibly be wrong. Okay, that's what certainty means. It's not possible to be wrong. That's pretty slim, right? There's not very many things like that. So if you're going to say that I have to be 100% certain in order to believe something, that means you can only believe the things that it's not possible for you to be wrong. But it's possible for us to be wrong about most things, right? So I would say that 100% is way too strict of a line to hold yourself to. And remember also that certainty is a property of persons, not things. Okay? Certainty is a property of persons. People are certain, not things. Right? So it's a property of you being certain, not that thing or that experience or that event. Okay, what things do we know for certain? Tautologies, these are like logical, things that are logical, like there's no such thing as a married bachelor, and stick, like try to think about a one-ended stick. That's a logical impossibility, right? These are tautologies, things that are always true, okay, because they follow the rules of logic and mathematical truths. These are things that we know for certain. And by that we mean it's not possible for us to be wrong about those. We might not know them, but once we do know them, it's not possible for us to be wrong once we understand the laws of logic, same thing. Okay, I believe we did. Okay, now we're going to get to the justified part, right? We did the true, we did the belief, now we're going to talk about justified. This is a little more controversial, okay? Because now we have to talk about what it means to be justified when we say that we know something. If we're going to claim that we know something, how are we going to back that up? And what qualifications do we need to meet in order to say that we know it? Okay? And this can differ. People can disagree about this, and so it can be a little bit more controversial. So now we're talking about getting from having a true belief to knowing that thing. Okay? Having a true belief about something to knowing it. Having a true belief about something is not enough to know it. You've got to be able to justify it. Okay? So this is the difference between just saying truth and knowing truth. Okay? My 4-year-old can say the phrase E equals MC squared. Okay? But does he know it?
No.
No. What the difference there is the justification. Okay? The difference there is if he can justify it, then we say that he'd be closer to knowing it. Does that make sense to you? Okay? Sometimes this is called warrant. Okay? That little trying to fill in that gap is sometimes called warrant. Because what if he could actually repeat justifications to you? This is how I know this. What if I taught him to say all those things? We still wouldn't say that he knows it, right? He doesn't understand it. He doesn't have warrant. He doesn't have the warrant to say that, right? There's something extra in there, and sometimes this is what people think should be added to justified true belief, okay? What if he actually, I mean, as far as he knows, he's repeating it. Yeah, I mean, sure, that sounds great. But we wouldn't say that he knows it, okay? Because he's not warranted in knowing that knowledge. He doesn't have anything else, right? There's something missing there, okay? For him to actually know it. Yeah, well, instead of understanding it, we call that warrant. Okay, so some people say that it ought to be added to the definition of knowledge. So, so it would be knowledge equals justified true belief plus warrant, sometimes. So if I ask you, if anything should be added to the tripartite analysis, what should it be? And you say warrant. Good work. Okay, so let's talk about justified again. This is the way that you know. It's the mode of grounding your belief. Okay, how you justify something is how you ground your belief about something. Okay, how you anchor it. All right. There must be an accepted mode of knowing in place. In other words, you have to meet certain epistemic. Okay, when we're talking about epistemology. Okay, episteme means knowledge, right? So if we say epistemic qualifications, well, there must be some sort of knowledge qualifications set in place for us to be able to assess. So we should look for evidence, probably, but where should we look for evidence? Well, that depends on the claim. Okay, should we look inside? Should we look outside? What if there's no evidence? Okay, we got to have some rules for this. Okay. Here's some, let me see. Okay. So there are some things, let's talk just as a brief aside, let's talk about this and talk about your justification for these things. Let's examine our grounding for it so that we can see what's acceptable and what's not. Okay, what qualifications do we accept for being able to justify something and what's not acceptable to us? So what if we said, well, we haven't eaten lunch today, but after you eat lunch, hamburgers at the BCM today, by the way, right here, in case you want a free lunch. What's our grounding that we ate lunch today, if we say that? What's our grounding that we ate breakfast today, if we ate breakfast?
I'm not hungry.
Okay, not hungry right now. Would that be enough, just that alone?
No.
That you, what? What would be another acceptable grounding for you knowing that you ate breakfast?
You watched yourself eat it.
Do you watch yourself eat breakfast?
Yeah.
Sit in front of a
You
mirror.
sit in front of a mirror?
No, you take it up, bring it to your face. You're seeing.
You bring it to your face and you put it in your face hole. Yeah.
In your mouth.
Okay, you have a memory of it, right? You saw it, maybe you didn't watch yourself, but you watched the food approach your mouth and then it disappeared. So you assume it went in there somewhere. Okay, you remember what it tastes like.
If
You ate it with friends.
You bought it, you've got
Witnesses.
paper evidence. You might have gone with a friend. Somebody might have seen you and awkwardly watched you eat. It might have been yourself in a mirror.
Hey, watch me eat. 'Cause I don't want to do
If you're really lonely, okay, that's sad. Let's move on. Okay, how about you knowing something a little bit different, like 2 + 2 = 4? How do you know that you know that? What's your grounding for that?
Elementary school. 1 + 1 is 2.
When you put two things with
Okay.
another 2 things, it makes 4.
It makes 4 items, right? So you can visualize it out there, okay? You can practice it basically, right? You can do it. You can do 2 + 2 = 4. Okay. How else? So you had a teacher that told you that? It just seems to be true, right? On its face. Okay, it's one of those yeah.
Kind of hard to disprove.
Okay.
If it all works out, plug it in somewhere with the numbers.
That it works, right? Good.
As far as you know.
Okay. How about something like this? It's wrong to torture people for fun. I hope that you all know that it's wrong to torture people for fun.
How do you know that?
We're not. Okay. Fearing for my life at this point. So remember I said for fun.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
we're
gonna
not
say
getting into the
down.
debate about whether or not torture is okay in other circumstances, but torturing people for fun is wrong. Why? How do you know that? Why do you know that?
Because I'd like to not be tortured.
Okay, so you know it based on reflecting on your own thoughts about how it would feel if you were tortured. That's bad. So therefore, the argument goes, therefore, because I don't like that, because I don't want that to happen to me, I'm going to say that's wrong for everybody.
But what
I
if
don't
some
like that.
people like to be tortured for fun?
We're not going
You can
there.
base it on other
We
people's
ain't going
experiences too.
Like, I mean, that's
We're
a
not
thing.
being
You can base
I'm
it
not
on-
actually trying to be
on-
like that guy, but that's actually a thing. It's
We're not
No, I'm not
people-
talking about. I'm talking about real torture.
Okay, like.
Pulling your fingernails
like,
out.
deadly,
and-
like,
right. Yeah.
Okay.
Some people like that. No, it's.
But it's wrong.
No, they don't. People don't like that. Okay, they don't choose to do that.
People as a whole do not enjoy that particular activity.
That kind of torture. Okay, I'm not talking about like weird sex stuff. Okay,
Okay.
let's just
Okay.
put that out there.
All right.
Torture.
Gotcha.
Torture.
Torture itself.
Okay.
Nice going, guys.
Like
Oh.
prisoners of war.
Leave it to you to find really weird loopholes. Okay. So Tabitha, you said something about other people's experiences. What did you
Yeah,
say?
like prisoners of war, from their experiences and when they come back and tell us the tales and stuff,
Okay.
the mental conditions they have.
Yes.
Okay. So based on those accounts, we'd say it's wrong. How else? Is that grounding acceptable enough for you to say, I know that torturing people for fun, anytime, anywhere, anybody is wrong? Yeah. It's gonna put a cramp in my schedule.
Cancel
But
this dinner plans.
that's a bunch of sadists. What is happening? Okay. How do you know that you, like when you're aware of feeling pain, how do you know that you, I've got like a pulled muscle right here. It's really painful right now. That's why I'm kind of like doing this. So how do I know that?
You feel it. You just feel it in your body, like.
Nerves.
Right? So it's like
Yeah.
a biological,
Synapses.
chemical thing. Okay?
Synapses
A
in
neurological
your brain.
thing. So it's like directly, this is one of those like properly basic things, right? It's directly present to my consciousness. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's enough justification for me to go, it hurts right here, right? No one's gonna ask you for additional grounding to know whether or not you are feeling pain, right? Now, are you really feeling pain? And you're like, yes, I'm feeling pain, right? You don't need any other justification other than that. Does that make sense?
Well, doctors, they poke at you.
Well, they want to know what your pain
Yeah, they
level
wanna know
is,
how
but
bad it
they're
is,
not
like,
disputing
on a
whether or
scale
not
of
you
1 to
feel
10.
pain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Coach.
Okay, how about George Washington being the first U.S. president?
We know that.
Kind of wasn't.
There's always one.
God.
There's always one that says, well, he might not have been.
Well, we did have presidents before
George Washington.
Anyway,
That were not presidents of the
United.
the United States. But let's just say, for sake of argument, that George Washington was the first. How do you know this?
It's documented, it's taught to us, historical.
Because everyone tells
Historical
us,
evidence, good.
So it must be true.
How do you know that you're at Carl Albert State College right now?
because my phone reminded me.
I drove here.
If
Because
that's
there's
how
signs
you know,
everywhere.
that's really worrisome. Where am I? Siri, where am I?
Snapchat tells me, hey, you're Carl Albert. Yes.
I've made it. Right place, right time. Awesome. Okay? Okay. So is your grounding, for all of these things, I think our grounding is accepted, right? And if somebody else were to tell you these things, hey, I think it's wrong to torture people for fun, or hey, guess what I know? 2 + 2 = 4, right? And they tell you how you know that, you accept that and believe that they actually know that they're telling you the truth, because our grounding for accepting these claims to knowledge is kind of the same, right? And so we all kind of know what it means to know these things. And when somebody says that, and even if we say, yeah, prove it that you're at Carl Albert State College, right? The evidence that they would offer would be acceptable to us. And we go, yeah, you're legit. Yeah, you know that. Does that make sense? We all kind of have this common ground here. Here's some examples of not knowing things. Things that you can say, but you don't actually know them. Okay? Claims to knowledge that should not be considered real knowledge. My father-in-law's name was George, and he was the biggest St. Louis Cardinals fan on the face of the planet. He claims on opening day,
Every year.
well, he passed away a few years ago, but yeah, pretty much every year he would say something like, I know the Cardinals will win the World Series this year because, here comes the justification, right? When anybody says because, You know they're about to offer you the reasons why they're claiming what they're claiming. So he says, I know the Cardinals will win the World Series this year because I've got a good feeling about it. Is that justification acceptable to you for him to claim that he knows?
Oh, yeah.
Does he really know that?
No.
What should he use instead of saying I know? What does he really mean?
I think
I hope.
the Cardinals.
I hope.
will-
I really, 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 really hope and
There's no
want them to.
justification, it's only a hope.
Okay? He could say, I think they will, but again, is justification for I think the Cardinals will win the World Series because I've got a good feeling about it. People usually don't say that because they hear it. They hear themselves and they go, that's not acceptable, right? To say that I think they will and the only reason I'm going to offer is because I have a good feeling about it, that usually catches in their brain. So what do
But
we
saying
do?
I know
So-
doesn't fit in their brain.
So what do we do to fix it? Instead of going down a notch to I hope, which would be more appropriate, we go up a notch to say I know they will. I don't just think they will, but I know they will. Really, that's not what we mean. Really, we mean I really, 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 really hope.
Yes, it would.
Okay.
Confidence, what we really call that.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of like, jinxing it or something like that, right? Okay. How about I know it's going to rain tomorrow because my knee hurts,
I've heard that so
right? Or my joints, or I have a headache, there's a front moving in, that kind of thing. I know there is, though.
No,
Is that a claim to knowledge? I mean, it's a claim to knowledge, but is it legit?
It's not a legit claim to knowledge, but it is a claim to knowledge.
It is a claim to knowledge, but it's not legit. Why? Because that grounding for that belief is not enough. Okay? That doesn't match, right? It's like saying, I know it's Wednesday because I ate a hot dog last night.
Okay.
Right? It doesn't,
That's wrong.
you need
No,
more
it's
information.
Tuesday
Okay, you need more
is
information.
hot dog night.
Now, if there was some kind of rule that said every Tuesday humans have to eat hot dogs, therefore the next day is Wednesday, now maybe we're onto something. We're getting closer. But to just say that, it doesn't follow. Okay, remember our arguments, right? The conclusion of today is Wednesday has to be supported by premises. That I ate a hot dog last night is not a premise that even is close to that. It's not even in the same ballpark. Okay, it's like random. Okay, how about this one? I know that I'm a hologram.
I know it.
Yeah, with you. Yeah,
I
get
know it. There's no justification whatsoever.
it holds just as much water as saying I know I'm a human.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Does it?
I know I'm a brain in a
I
vat.
know justice is just.
Well,
Hey now.
we all know that.
There's no justification whatsoever.
But there's no justification given, but can a person know that?
Are they a person or a hologram?
No.
Can a person know that they are a hologram?
No.
Why not?
Because they're a person, not a hologram.
If they went into
Because that's not possible,
Hologram,
right? It's not true.
if they went into virtual reality and they were a hologram in this world, then they would be a hologram in this world and still a human in the other.
Okay,
world.
stop talking.
Still be a hologram.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
That's amazing.
Okay, does that make sense to you though?
Yeah.
I mean, A, there's no justification given, but B, they can't know that because remember, knowledge has to be a justified, true belief. Okay? Here we've just got the belief. There's no justification and it's not true. 3 more. I know, you guys familiar with Scientology?
Yeah.
Okay. L. Ron Hubbard. I've got all of his books in my library. If you want to look at them, they've got some pretty cool covers. I know that I'm a Thetan, not Satan with a lisp,
What is
okay?
that?
But a Thetan. Okay, I know that I'm a Thetan. That's what we are, like at our essence, according to Scientology, we're all Thetans, like the beings called Thetans. Okay? I know that I'm a Thetan because L. Ron Hubbard said so. Can you know this?
No.
Is there justification for it?
I'm sure he has something in his book.
L. Ron
Right?
Hubbard.
For me to say this, right? Because I know I'm a Thetan because L. Ron Hubbard. I mean, yeah, I'm offering some kind of justification, right? I'm appealing to some kind of authority, right, on the subject, okay? So, I mean, yeah, but why can't I know it? Yeah, and it's not true.
L. Ron Hubbard is full of baloney.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what he's
Respectfully,
talking
yes, he is.
about.
Sorry.
Okay, I know that it's irrational to believe in a God because naturalism and evolution have proven that God does not exist. Is this a claim? I mean, it's a claim to knowledge, but what do you think about it? I know that it's irrational to believe in God because, here's my justification, naturalism and evolution have proven that God does not exist.
Well, they give an evidence. If the evidence is true, then.
Okay, so we'd have to look at the evidence, right? We'd have to look at the justification to see whether or not that claim is correct. Make sense? Okay. Lastly, I know that the number of electrons in the universe is even.
Oh, God, I was worried it was going to be odd.
I mean, you got a
How?
50-50 shot, right?
There is no way that you could know that.
Why not?
There is no way that you could know how many electrons are in the universe.
Why not?
No, she's not saying they know how many there is. They're saying that that they're even.
Because
There's too many of them.
there's too many of them to count.
They like to pair.
They like to pair and break apart and form an ionic and covalent bonds. So you really
Shut it
can't
down.
keep an action.
Okay, so what we need then, right, we seem to be able to kind of sort out things that are like, yeah, this has legit justification. No, this doesn't have legit. Hang on, we're not going to talk about this. Okay, so hang on. We're going to stop here. So we seem to be able to sort this out. Don't put your stuff away. Just listen to me. Gosh. Jeez, it's like I say we're done, and then you shut off your brains and your
We're
ears.
not even done yet, though.
And some maybe your brains weren't even on to begin with. Okay, so we seem to be able to sort out like intuitively, right? We can almost feel it. Okay, which ones are like, yeah, that one's okay, and which ones are like, no, that's crazy talk, right? We kind of know that. Well, I'm telling you again, like most things in here, if you bring it to the front and name it and label it, right, then it gives it a name. But we kind of already know this stuff internally. Okay. So what we need now, though, is a theory that kind of sorts out that stuff for us and gives us a set, I just spit real big time, and gives us a set of acceptable justifications and non-acceptable justifications. Does that make sense? So that we can know when we're making claims to knowledge that are justified true beliefs and when we're not, right? When our justification is legit and when it's not. Does that make sense? So we need a theory that's going to give us a system for how to sort that out and to tell us when a justification is good and when it's not. Does that sound? That's the next step. Are you tracking with me?
Theories.
Okay. So we're going to theories next to give us a couple of systems to look at and see whether or not they're helpful in determining whether or not a true belief is justified or not. Are you tracking? Can you suspend that all the way through a fall break and start here?
No.
Know where we're at?
I have to review.
Probably gonna lose all
Have
of
to
my
reveal a little
short-term
bit?
memory this fall break.
All right. Go have an excellent break.
What were you gonna say?